Commander Zixtar stood on the bridge of his massive ship and looked down at the small blue planet below. Earth was its name according to the data files. The planet looked normal enough with its swirling white clouds and deep blue oceans. Nothing about it seemed special or dangerous. His science team had been watching this world for many cycles now, and their reports were standard. Another primitive species ready for integration into the great galactic community. The hegemony had done this thousands of times before. They would observe a new species for a while and then make contact. Most species were happy to join the galactic community once they saw the advanced technology and benefits. Those who refused were quickly convinced by a show of force. It was a simple process that had worked perfectly for 10,000 years. Zixtar looked at his science officer Velna, who was reading the latest reports from their monitoring drones. She seemed troubled by something which was unusual. Velna was known for her calm and logical approach to everything. "What concerns you, officer?" Zixtar asked. Velna looked up from her data screen with confusion in her large black eyes. "Commander, the readings from this planet make no sense. The gravity is 3 times what most galactic species can handle. The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, which is toxic to most life forms we know. The star bombards this world with radiation that would kill our people in hours without protection." Zixtar waved a dismissive hand. "Perhaps our equipment needs calibration. No species could evolve intelligence under such harsh conditions." "That is what troubles me, Commander. The humans not only survived these conditions, but they seem to thrive in them. They have built cities and technology while living in what should be a death world." Meanwhile on Earth, Dr. Amy Peterson was working late in her laboratory at the Nevada Radio Telescope facility. She had been tracking strange signals for weeks now. The patterns were too regular to be natural, but too complex to be from any known human technology. As she ran the data through her computers for the 100th time, something clicked into place. Amy felt her blood turn cold as she realized what she was looking at. The signal showed massive objects in orbit around Earth. Objects that were clearly artificial and definitely not human. Someone or something was watching them from space. Amy grabbed her phone and called her friend Jake Morrison, who worked as a Marine captain at a nearby military base. Jake had always been interested in her work, and she trusted him to know what to do with this information. "Jake, you need to get over here right now," Amy said when he answered. "I have found something that changes everything." Jake Morrison had been running training exercises in the desert when his equipment detected aircraft moving in impossible patterns. No human technology could make those kinds of movements. The objects seemed to appear and disappear at will while scanning the military base below. Jake had immediately reported this to his commanders, but they seemed more interested in keeping it quiet than investigating. When Amy called him, Jake was already suspicious that something big was happening. He drove to her laboratory as fast as his jeep could carry him. Amy showed Jake the data she had collected, and his military training immediately recognized what they were looking at. "These are surveillance patterns," Jake said grimly. "Someone is studying our military capabilities and population centers. This is preparation for something big." Back on the hegemony ship, Velna continued reviewing the data about humans with growing alarm. The more she learned about Earth, the more impossible it seemed that intelligent life could exist there. Yet humans had not only survived but had developed technology and culture at an incredible rate. Commander Velna said, "I believe we need to reconsider our approach to this species. Their world has made them unlike anything in our databases. They have evolved under extreme pressure for millions of years. Every aspect of their environment should have killed them, yet they not only survived but became the dominant species on their planet." Zixtar looked annoyed at her continued concerns. "Officer, you are overthinking this situation. They are a primitive species with basic technology. Their harsh world means nothing against our advanced weapons and shields. We will follow standard first contact protocols." What Zixtar did not understand was that humans carried something in their genes that no other galactic species possessed. They were the children of a world that had tried to kill them every day for millions of years. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, plagues that killed most of their population, predators with teeth and claws that could crush bones. Each disaster that should have ended humanity had instead made them stronger. They learned to adapt quickly to new threats. They learned to work together when facing impossible odds. They learned that giving up meant death, so they never learned how to surrender. Dr. Peterson and Captain Morrison spent the next 3 days analyzing the alien signals and preparing reports for their respective organizations. Amy focused on understanding the technology while Jake worked on military implications. Their scanning patterns suggest they are preparing for some kind of action, Jake explained to Amy. They have mapped every major city and military base on Earth. This is not peaceful observation. Amy nodded as she pointed to her computer screens. The technology they are using is decades ahead of anything we have. If they wanted to hurt us, we would have no way to stop them with conventional weapons. Maybe, Jake said with a grim smile, but humans have never been conventional. We have been fighting impossible odds since we lived in caves. If these aliens think we will just roll over and give up, they are about to learn something about human nature. Neither Amy nor Jake knew that their analysis was exactly correct. The hegemony was indeed preparing for standard first contact, procedures which included a demonstration of overwhelming force followed by demands for immediate surrender. Commander Zixtar had no idea that he was about to make the biggest mistake in galactic history. He was preparing to threaten a species that had evolved specifically to survive threats. He was planning to intimidate creatures whose ancestors had stared down saber-toothed tigers in Ice Age storms. The stage was set for first contact between the galactic community and humanity. One side expected easy victory based on superior technology and thousands of years of successful conquests. The other side knew only one response to threats, which was to fight back harder than anyone expected. Soon the galaxy would discover what happened when an unstoppable force met in species that refused to be moved. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the first time in 3,000 years. Representatives from 12 major civilizations gathered in the ancient crystal chambers where galactic law had been written millennia ago. Their collective fear was so strong it could be felt in the air itself. High Counselor Murthak of the Valdari opened the session with words that sent chills through every representative present. In less than 2 years, the human species has evolved from primitive planet-bound creatures to masters of technologies we do not understand. They are no longer contained to their home system on Earth, which now served as capital of the new Terran. Federation President Linda Walsh reviewed intelligence reports that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. Human forces had established colonies in 12 star systems, more disturbing to the old galactic powers they had begun making contact with species the hegemony had conquered. Generations ago, General Jake Morrison commanded the Federation's first fleet from the bridge of the TFS Victory. The ship represented everything humans had learned about combining alien technology with human innovation. Built around a captured hegemony dreadnought core, it had been enhanced with improvements that made it unlike anything in known databases. Admiral, we are receiving distress signals from the Kepler system, reported Communications Officer Ryan Torres. The Zephyrians are requesting assistance against hegemony occupation forces. Morrison smiled grimly as he reviewed the tactical situation. The Zephyrians were one of dozens of species that had reached out to humanity for help. Word had spread through underground networks that the Deathworlders were winning against the galactic superpowers and oppressed civilizations. Saw hope for the first time in centuries. Dr. Amy Peterson now served as Science Minister for the Terran Federation, coordinating research efforts across multiple star systems. Human adaptability had proven to be their greatest strength. Within months of encountering new environments, human settlements were thriving in conditions that should have been instantly lethal. The hegemony's biggest mistake, Peterson explained to the Federation Council, was assuming we would follow their rules of warfare. They have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. We reinvent our tactics every single engagement. Captain Stephen Lee, now Admiral Lee, commanded the Federation's Rapid Response Forces. His ships had perfected what humans called evolution warfare. They adapted tactics, technology, and strategy in real time based on enemy responses. No two human engagements followed the same patterns. The liberation of the Kepler system demonstrated humanity's new approach to galactic politics. Instead of conquering the Zephyrians, humans offered them partnership. Federation technology flowed freely to allied species along with something far more valuable, the human concept of adaptive innovation itself. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian scientists to create hybrid technologies that exceeded the capabilities of either species alone. The combination of human creativity with Zephyrian precision engineering produced chips and weapons that redefined what was possible. Commander Velna now served as a liaison between reformed hegemony forces and the expanding Federation. She found herself analyzing intelligence, reports that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics and military science. They are not just integrating technologies from multiple species, she reported to what remained of hegemony leadership. They are teaching other species to innovate in ways we never thought possible. The Zephyrians have developed new technologies in months that exceed their previous 1,000 years of development. The Battle of Vega Nebula marked the turning point of what historians would later call the Galactic Revolution. A combined hegemony fleet of over 400 ships, representing the military might of 6 major civilizations encountered a human task force of only 60 vessels. Every rational calculation, the humans should have been annihilated within hours. The enemy fleet outgunned them 7-1 and included some of the most advanced warships ever constructed. Instead, the battle lasted 3 days and ended with the complete destruction of the hegemony fleet. Human forces used the nebula's exotic matter and energy fields to power weapons that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. Ships phase shifted through dimensions that galactic science insisted were purely theoretical. Human pilots performed maneuvers that required reaction times and physical endurance impossible for normal biology. Admiral Morrison commanded the engagement from Victory's Bridge, coordinating with human forces that had evolved beyond recognition. Months of zero-gravity combat had enhanced their spatial awareness. Exposure to alien technologies had given them intuitive understanding of exotic physics. All forces implement Protocol Chaos, Morrison ordered as the final phase of battle began. Protocol Chaos represented the ultimate expression of human warfare. Each ship in the human fleet operated independently, following no standard tactical doctrine, while somehow maintaining perfect strategic coordination. Individual captains made decisions based on local conditions while contributing to an overall plan that existed nowhere except in collective human intuition. The hegemony's tactical computers, designed to predict and counter enemy movement, simply overloaded trying to process the coordinated unpredictability of human forces. Their artificial intelligence systems had been programmed to expect rational behavior following established military principles. Human forces violated every principle of rational warfare while achieving perfect strategic results. Ships would retreat when winning if it served some larger purpose. They would advance when losing if it created opportunities for other units. They would sacrifice tactical advantages to gain strategic position. The final moments of the battle saw human forces using the nebula itself as a weapon. They triggered controlled stellar phenomena that turned cosmic forces into directed energy attacks. The hegemony fleet found itself fighting not just human ships but the environment itself. As the last enemy vessels fled toward the edge of the system, Admiral Morrison realized humanity had crossed a fundamental threshold. They were no longer defending their territory, they were actively reshaping galactic civilization. Captain Kelly Roberts now commanded the Federation's First Contact Division. Her mission had evolved from warfare to something more complex. She introduced isolated species to the new galactic order without triggering the conflicts that had marked humanity's own violent introduction to galactic society. Approaching uncharted system, her navigator reported. Long-range sensors detect a pre-spaceflight civilization, showing early signs of technological development. Roberts reviewed the contact protocols humans had developed through hard experience. Unlike the old hegemony system of overwhelming force followed by demands for submission, humans approached new species as potential partners and allies. They offered knowledge freely provided, assistance without demanding tribute, and most importantly encouraged other species to develop their own unique contributions to galactic civilization. The transformation of galactic society accelerated beyond all predictions. Species that had remained unchanged for thousands of years began innovating rapidly when exposed to human concepts of adaptive development. Technologies that had been theoretical for millennia became practical when approached with human willingness to experiment and accept failure as part of the learning process. The old galactic order had been based on the assumption that advanced civilizations reached a peak of development and maintained it through careful control and standardization. Humanity introduced a revolutionary concept that evolution never stopped that challenge, created strength, and that diversity produced innovations impossible for uniform cultures. As the Terran Federation expanded into former hegemony, territory they encountered species eager to embrace the human model of continuous adaptation and growth. The galaxy belonged to those willing to evolve, and humanity had taught the stars themselves how to change. The second hegemony invasion fleet arrived at Earth, 6 months after the first fleet's humiliating retreat. This time they brought overwhelming force with 300 ships and orders to avoid the mistakes that had cost them so dearly. Fleet Commander Zaroth had studied the human resistance extensively and believed he understood how to defeat them. He could not have been more wrong about what he would find. General Jake Morrison stood in the command center buried deep beneath Colorado's Cheyenne Mountain. The past 6 months had transformed not just Earth's military but humanity itself. The species that had once fought each other over borders and resources now worked together with single-minded purpose. "Give me a status report," Morrison requested from his staff officers. Commander Lisa Park, who had been a NASA engineer before the war, now headed the Reverse Engineering Division. "Sir, we have successfully integrated alien power systems into 70% of our defensive platforms. More importantly, we have learned to manufacture basic alien components ourselves. We are not just copying their technology anymore, we are improving it." Dr. Amy Peterson, who coordinated research efforts around the globe, added her analysis. "General, the aliens operate under what I call technological stagnation. Their equipment is incredibly advanced but has not evolved in centuries. They build things to last forever, which means they never learned rapid innovation. We are outdeveloping them by incredible amounts." Captain Stephen Lee, who now led the Space Combat Division, reported from orbit. "Sir, our hybrid fighters are fully operational. We are using human pilot instincts with alien propulsion systems. The enemy cannot predict our movement patterns because they are based on atmospheric flight principles adapted to space combat." Fleet Commander Zaroth began the second invasion with complete confidence. His ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, with weapons charged, expecting to face the same primitive resistance as before. Instead, he found Earth's orbital space, filled with objects that should not have been possible. Human ships that looked like they had been built in scrapyards flew with capabilities that exceeded anything in galactic databases. Fighters constructed from salvaged parts outmaneuvered purpose-built alien interceptors. Capital ships that combined human and alien technology in ways that violated engineering principles somehow worked better than either technology alone. The first engagement lasted exactly 17 minutes. Human forces attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Mining ships designed for asteroid work rammed into alien cruisers while broadcasting human music at maximum volume. Fighter craft piloted by former stunt pilots and race car drivers performed maneuvers that should have killed their crews. But humans proved capable of withstanding acceleration forces that would turn most galactic species into liquid paste. Captain Kelly Roberts flew a hybrid fighter built from alien engines and human electronics held together with what appeared to be spare parts and determination. Her opponent was a hegemony ace pilot flying a ship generations more advanced than her improvised craft. The alien pilot was technically superior with better training and equipment. But Roberts had grown up racing motorcycles and playing three-dimensional video games. She understood physics and momentum in ways that formal military training could not teach. The dogfight ended when Roberts used atmospheric flight techniques that should have been impossible in space. She pulled her ship into a power dive that should have torn it apart, but instead emerged behind the alien fighter where a precision shot disabled it without killing the pilot. On Earth's surface, the war had completely transformed human civilization. Dr. Peterson coordinated with research teams on every continent, sharing technological breakthroughs in real time. Factories that once produced consumer goods now manufactured weapons that combined alien science with human engineering. University physics departments had become research centers for technologies that most galactic species considered theoretical. Students learned to operate alien equipment alongside traditional subjects. Children grew up understanding both human innovation and alien science as if they were the same thing. The hegemony's advantages evaporated faster than anyone thought possible. Their superior firepower became useless when humans refused to present concentrated targets. Their advanced defensive systems failed against weapons that combined alien components with human materials in ways that should not have worked. Most critically, their tactical computers could not process the chaotic creativity of human warfare. Humans would use mining equipment as assault vehicles. They would turn communication systems into weapons. They would combine technologies from different alien systems in ways that created entirely new capabilities. Fleet Commander Zaroth watched his invasion fleet dissolve into scattered survivors, retreating toward the outer planets. In 6 months, humans had evolved from primitive tool users into something that defied every category in galactic databases. They were not just using captured alien technology, they were creating entirely new forms of warfare that exceeded the capabilities of any known species. Human ships now incorporated design principles from multiple alien civilizations combined with human innovation in ways that created hybrid technology superior to their sources. Commander Velna, who had been studying humans since first contact, now found herself analyzing combat reports that violated rational explanation. Human forces had begun integrating technologies from different species in combinations that should not work but somehow created capabilities beyond anything previously known. They are not just adapting, she reported to increasingly desperate hegemony leadership. They are evolving the very concept of technology itself. Their ships use navigation systems from one species, power cores from another, weapons from a third, and human engineering principles to combine them all. The transformation went beyond technology. Human crews had begun adapting to space combat in ways that exceeded baseline human capabilities. Pilots who spent months in zero-gravity developed enhanced spatial awareness that allowed them to think in true 3 dimensions. Engineers, working with alien equipment, gained intuitive understanding of exotic physics that let them modify systems in ways their original designers never intended. Soldiers fighting in multiple environments adapted to threats and conditions that should have killed them. The Battle of the Asteroid Belt demonstrated how far human capabilities had evolved. A hegemony patrol fleet encountered what appeared to be a small human mining operation. The engagement should have been a simple destruction of primitive equipment. Instead, the mining ships revealed themselves to be heavily armed hybrid vessels that used asteroid mining techniques as weapons of war. They hurled rocks accelerated to incredible speeds while using mining lasers as precision cutting tools against alien armor. The human ships moved through the asteroid field like they belonged. They're using gravitational effects and orbital mechanics in ways that turned the environment itself into a weapon. The hegemony ships designed for open space combat found themselves outmaneuvered by vessels that treated 3-dimensional asteroid navigation as routine. As fleet commander, Zaroth's flagship limped away from Earth's solar system. He realized the truth that would soon shake galactic civilization to its core. Humanity was not just another species that could be conquered and integrated into existing systems. They were something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. They were a force of adaptive evolution that grew stronger and more capable with every challenge they faced. The Deathworlders had become apex predators, and they were just beginning to understand their own potential. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when a species evolved for millions of years under impossible conditions finally had access to advanced technology and the freedom to use it without restraint. The hunters had become the hunted, and the former prey had evolved into something completely unprecedented in galactic history. Admiral Kethmore commanded the largest first contact fleet in hegemony history as 50 massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could destroy entire cities. This show of overwhelming force had convinced hundreds of species to surrender without a fight. The Admiral expected the same result from these primitive humans. President Linda Walsh stood in the White House Situation Room surrounded by her military advisors and top scientists. 3 days ago, the alien ships had revealed themselves and broadcast a message demanding Earth's immediate surrender. The message was translated into broken English, but the meaning was clear. Submit to the galactic hegemony or face destruction. What are our options? President Walsh asked her assembled team. General Peter Collins pulled up images of the alien fleet on the main screen. Madam President, their ships are massive and heavily armed. Our satellites detect energy signatures unlike anything in our technology. A direct military confrontation would be suicide for our forces. Dr. Amy Peterson, who had been named Chief Science Advisor after discovering the alien signals, disagreed with the General's assessment. Mr. President, I have been studying their technology since we first detected them. Yes, it is advanced, but it follows predictable patterns. More importantly, their communications suggest they have never faced serious resistance from any species. Colonel Jake Morrison, who had been promoted and placed in charge of Earth's defense planning, studied the tactical displays carefully. Madam President, we cannot match their firepower in a direct fight, but we do not need to. Every invasion force has weaknesses. They are assuming we will surrender when faced with superior technology. They are not prepared for the kind of warfare humans excel at. Admiral Kethmore waited patiently for Earth's surrender. He had given the humans a full day to consider their options, which was generous by hegemony standards. When no response came, he opened communication channels to address the planet directly. Primitive humans. His translator rendered his words into English. Your time for consideration has ended. You have seen our fleet and our power. Submit now and your species will be preserved as part of the galactic community. Resist and face the full consequences of defying galactic law. President Walsh's response was broadcast on every frequency and translated back to the aliens using their own communication systems. This is President Linda Walsh of the United States speaking for all people of Earth. We reject your demands completely. If you want our world, you will have to come down here and take it. The words sent shockwaves through the hegemony fleet. In 10,000 years of galactic expansion, no primitive species had ever issued such a direct challenge to their authority. Admiral Kethmore consulted his tactical computers searching for any precedent, but found none. The invasion of Earth began with surgical strikes on major military installations. The hegemony expected quick surrender once humans saw their cities burning. Instead, they discovered that humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare against impossible odds. Earth's military forces did not mass together to fight the alien ships directly. Instead, they scattered into smaller units that could strike quickly and disappear before the aliens could respond. Colonel Morrison had studied every successful resistance movement in human history and applied those lessons on a global scale. The first successful counterattack came when Morrison led a team of specially trained soldiers to board a damaged alien frigate that had landed for repairs. The boarding action confused the hegemony forces, who had never encountered an enemy willing to fight at close range in the vacuum of space. Morrison and his team moved through the alien ship using tactics learned from urban warfare and shipboarding operations. The aliens had advanced weapons, but they were not trained for close combat. Within hours, human forces had captured their first intact alien vessel. Dr. Peterson coordinated with resistance cells around the world to analyze the captured alien technology. She discovered that the aliens' greatest advantage was also their greatest weakness. Their technology was so advanced and standardized that they had never needed to innovate under pressure. Human engineers and scientists began combining alien technology with human innovation in ways the aliens had never imagined. Plasma cannons were mounted on pickup trucks. Alien navigation systems were reprogrammed to guide human missiles. Communication arrays were hacked to feed false information back to the invasion fleet. Within days, human forces were using improvised weapons that should not have worked but somehow exceeded the performance of their original components. A farm tractor equipped with an alien energy shield became an unstoppable assault vehicle. Commercial aircraft fitted with captured alien engines could now fight in space. Admiral Kethmore watched his invasion force take casualties at an alarming rate. Not from superior human technology, but from something far more dangerous. Human creativity applied to warfare in ways his tactical computers could not predict or counter. Every time the hegemony adapted to human tactics, the humans would change their approach completely. They treated every defeat as a learning opportunity and every victory as a chance to try something even more audacious. Captain Kelly Roberts had been a test pilot before the invasion began. Now she flew a hybrid fighter built from salvaged alien parts and human engineering. Her ship looked like it had been assembled in a garage, but it could outmaneuver anything in the hegemony. Fleet Roberts found herself in a dogfight with an alien ace pilot flying a ship, generations more advanced than her cobbled-together fighter. The alien pilot was technically superior, and his ship had better weapons and shields. But Roberts had grown up playing video games and racing motorcycles. She thought in 3 dimensions while her opponent followed standard flight patterns. The engagement ended when Roberts used atmospheric flight techniques in space combat. She performed a maneuver that should have destroyed her ship, but instead put her behind the alien fighter, where a single shot disabled it without killing the pilot. The surface, the war had transformed human civilization completely. Factories that once built cars now manufactured plasma weapons. University research departments became centers for studying alien technology. Children learned to operate captured alien equipment alongside basic reading and writing. The hegemony's advantages disappeared one by one. Their superior firepower meant nothing when humans refused to present large targets. Their advanced shields failed. Against weapons that combined alien technology with human, materials that should not have worked together. Most importantly, their tactical computers could not process the chaotic creativity of human warfare. Humans would attack from unexpected directions using weapons that violated standard military doctrine. They would retreat when winning and advance when losing, if it served some larger strategic purpose. Admiral Kethmore found himself fighting an enemy that became more dangerous when cornered. Every defeat made humans more determined. Every setback led to new innovations that exceeded anything in galactic databases. After 6 months of increasing losses, Admiral Kethmore made the decision to withdraw his forces from Earth orbit. His fleet had been reduced to less than half its original strength. More importantly, his remaining ships were demoralized and confused by an enemy that refused to follow any known patterns of warfare. As the hegemony fleet retreated toward the edge of the solar system, Admiral Kethmore realized he had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were a force of nature that grew stronger when challenged. The Deathworlders had won their first battle against galactic civilization and in doing so had announced to the universe that the old rules no longer applied. 5 years after first contact, the Terran Federation controlled 47 star systems and maintained defensive agreements with over 200 species. The ancient galactic order, dominated by civilizations that had ruled unchanged for millennia, crumbled as younger species embraced human concepts of rapid adaptation and continuous evolution. President Linda Walsh, now in her second term leading the Federation, addressed the newly formed Galactic Assembly from chambers that had once been reserved for the old Council elite. Representatives from 300 species filled the vast crystalline hall, many of them free for the first time in their civilization's recorded histories. The age of static empires has ended, Walsh declared as her words were translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. We offer a new model based on cooperative evolution, shared innovation, and the freedom for all species to reach their maximum potential. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the Federation Defense Force from Unity, a mobile command ship that exemplified human innovation at its finest. Built with contributions from dozens of species, it represented technologies that had never been combined before the human revolution began. More importantly, Unity was crewed by representatives from 40 different worlds, all working together under command principles that humans had developed through centuries of military cooperation and adaptation. Status report on the Outer Rim territories Morrison requested from his incredibly diverse senior staff. Commander Lisa Park, now head of multi-species integration, consulted displays showing the Federation's rapidly expanding influence across previously unexplored regions of the galaxy. Sir, we have established research stations in 17 systems that were considered completely uninhabitable by galactic standards. Our adaptive colonization techniques are allowing species to settle worlds that had been written off as impossible. Dr. Amy Peterson, serving as the Federation's chief science advisor, coordinated research projects that spanned the known galaxy and beyond. Human scientific methodology, with its emphasis on rapid experimentation, collaborative research, and willingness to challenge established theories, had revolutionized galactic knowledge in ways no one had thought possible. We have achieved major breakthroughs in 3 critical projects this quarter, Peterson reported to the assembled command staff. The Altarians have developed faster-than-light communication using human quantum theories we shared with them. The Zephyrians have created completely self-repairing materials based on human adaptive engineering principles. She paused to highlight the most significant development on her displays. Most importantly, we have begun to understand the fundamental principles that have governed galactic civilization for millennia, and why those principles are no longer adequate for our expanding universe. The remnants of the old hegemony forces had retreated to the heavily fortified core worlds where ancient species desperately tried to understand how their perfectly ordered universe had been completely overturned by newcomers who refused to follow any established rules. High Commander Zaroth, one of the few surviving hegemony leaders, studied intelligence reports with growing despair and confusion. Every piece of data suggested that the situation was becoming worse rather than better despite their defensive preparations. They do not simply defeat us in military engagements, he explained to the Emergency Council of remaining hegemony leadership. They transform every species they encounter into something we no longer recognize. The humans spread ideas more dangerous than any physical weapon. What kind of ideas? Asked Counselor Murthak with genuine fear in his ancient voice. The concept that civilization itself can evolve, Zaroth replied grimly. The belief that technology can transcend established limitations. The notion that ancient hierarchies and traditional power structures are not immutable laws of nature, but temporary arrangements that can be changed. Admiral Kelly Roberts led the Federation's First Contact Division with responsibilities that had evolved far beyond simple military operations. Her mission now involved introducing isolated species to the new galactic paradigm without triggering the violent conflicts that had marked humanity's own introduction to galactic society. Approaching the Rigel system, her navigator reported from the bridge of the exploration vessel Horizon. Long-range scans detect a pre-spaceflight civilization in early industrial development stage. Species appears to have developed basic metallurgy and primitive mechanical engineering. Roberts reviewed the contact protocols that humanity had developed through years of hard experience and careful study of what had gone wrong with their own first contact. Unlike the old hegemony system of overwhelming technological demonstration, followed by demands for immediate submission, humans approached each new species as potential partners in galactic development. They offered knowledge freely without strings attached, provided assistance during natural disasters and conflicts without demanding tribute or submission, and most importantly, they encouraged other species to develop their own unique contributions to the growing galactic community. The transformation of galactic society continued to accelerate beyond all previous predictions or theoretical models. Species that had remained technologically and culturally static for thousands of years began innovating at incredible rates. When exposed to human concepts of adaptive development and collaborative research, technologies that had existed only in theoretical frameworks for millennia became practical applications when approached with human willingness to experiment, accept failure as part of learning, and combine concepts from completely different fields of study. Commander Velna now served as primary liaison between reformed hegemony territories, and the expanding Federation found herself documenting changes that seemed to violate everything she had been taught about the nature of civilized development. The humans did not simply defeat our military forces, she recorded in her daily reports. They demonstrated that our entire understanding of how civilizations develop and maintain themselves was fundamentally flawed. They showed us that what we considered our greatest strength, our rigid adherence to proven traditional methods, was actually our greatest weakness. She paused in her recording to review data that still seemed impossible despite months of observation. They taught us that tradition itself can evolve, that ancient wisdom can be improved upon, and that the stability we prized so highly was actually stagnation that prevented us from reaching our true potential. The old galactic order had been constructed on the basic assumption that advanced civilizations naturally reached a peak level of development and then maintained that achievement through careful control, standardized procedures, and resistance to change that might destabilize their perfect systems. Humanity had introduced a completely revolutionary concept that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about the nature of progress and civilization. They demonstrated that evolution never truly stopped, that external challenges created internal strength, and that diversity of thought and approach produced innovations that were impossible for homogeneous cultures operating under uniform principles. As President Walsh concluded her historic address to the Galactic Assembly, she reflected on humanity's incredible journey from an isolated death-world species to the primary catalyst for galactic transformation. The aliens had been correct about one fundamental aspect of human nature. Humans were indeed paradoxical creatures who defied easy categorization or prediction. They had successfully transformed their greatest apparent disadvantage, their evolutionary origin on a deadly world that forced constant adaptation, into the greatest possible advantage any species could possess in an expanding and challenging universe. The Deathworlders had not simply survived their violent introduction to galactic civilization. They had evolved it into something unprecedented and infinitely more dynamic than anyone had previously imagined possible. As new challenges emerged, from unexplored regions beyond the known galactic rim, humanity stood ready to face them with the same adaptive creativity and collaborative innovation that had already transformed the known universe. The galaxy now belonged to species willing to evolve and grow, and humanity had taught countless civilizations how to embrace change as opportunity rather than fear it as threat to their carefully maintained stability.